Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Let's get into it. Today, I want to talk a little bit about business, and I want to focus on a classic business book, a specific law out of this classic business book. The book is The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. This book was written sometime in the mid-90s by Al Ries and Jack Trout, I believe, were the two authors. And the book is an absolutely amazing book, and its principles still apply very much so today. And it is around marketing and positioning. Jack and Al were really some of the first individuals to talk about positioning in marketing. And they put this book out, and like I said, it's the 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. I think it's a must-read for everybody in business. But there's one law that I've been thinking about quite a bit, and it's something I'm focusing on right now as I expand into a new business. I'm going back through that book, and I'm figuring out what's most applicable. And I'll tell you what, law number one, actually in the book, is incredibly applicable, and I thought I'd share it with all of you today. So law number one in the book is the law of leadership. And what Jack and Al were talking about, the law of leadership from a marketing perspective, it's better to be first than it is to be better. What does that mean? It's better to be first than it is to be better. This law emphasizes the importance of being the first brand or the first business to establish a position in the minds of your consumers within a particular category or an industry or a business line. So being the first to market with a product or an idea gives you a significant competitive advantage because it allows you to really define the category and kind of set the standards. I'll give you an example. While we're definitely still trying to gain more traction with respect to the No Days Off podcast, as many of you probably are aware, our episodes are 5 to maybe 12 minutes in length. Now, the reason we did that, there's many reasons why we made them 5 to 12 minutes, but the biggest reason is that when I looked across the podcast landscape, and there's so many great podcasts out there, there were at least very few that I personally knew of or was listening to, and I'm an avid podcast listener. There were very few, if any, in the short form podcast space. Of course, there's the long form. There's the Ed Milet's. There's the Tim Ferriss, right? There's the Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan actually was first to the long form. He kind of set the stage for everybody else. But there's very few, if any, in the short form. And why does that matter? I mean, obviously, we still have a long ways to go. And I do not mean to put us in the same category of the Rogans and the Milet's and the Tim Ferrisses just yet. But I want to make it clear, our short form, 5 to 12 minutes, is very much about, maybe my lack of content or ability to go long, but it's especially because I wanted to compete in a space where there wasn't a lot of competition. So this law of leadership emphasizes the importance of being first. Ries and Trout argue that being the first leader in a category oftentimes allows a company to maintain its leadership position even when the competition shows up. And why is that? The reason for that is that the first brand to establish itself becomes so closely associated with that category in the minds of its consumers, and that makes it very difficult for those that enter later to displace that leader. Here's some more examples that are probably better than the No Days Off podcast with respect to its 5 to 12 minute category. Here's some more well-known examples. First one that came to mind for me, IBM. IBM was one of the first companies to establish itself in the computer industry. And IBM became synonymous with computers in the early days and set many of the standards in the industry. Now, did they have a tremendous amount of competition arrive? Of course they did. And is IBM maybe as prominent from a personal computer standpoint as it once was? I don't think it is, with Apple and all these others. But let's be clear, IBM is still a massive player in the space, and for many is still the synonymous name with computers. Another great example, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is a prime example of a brand that established itself as a leader in the cola beverage industry. It was one of the first colas, and it's still the most dominant player in the industry. Yes, it has competition, but think about Coca-Cola. I mean, so many people have used the word Coke to actually represent all of soda. Like, I need a Coke, I want a Coke. They don't even so much mean I want Coca-Cola anymore. Netflix, another really good example. Sure, they started as a DVD rental by mail service, but when they shifted to online streaming, they were one of the first companies to establish a significant presence in the online streaming market, which set the stage for the entire streaming revolution. You know what? One more, why not? I think Uber is a great example. Uber pioneered the ride-sharing industry. It disrupted the traditional taxi business. They were first in. At least first in and being prominent and gaining market share. So I wanted to share this law of leadership with you all today, because most everyone listening is a business owner or in business, and you are either driving your current business or thinking about other lanes. And I just want to stress the importance that it's better to be first oftentimes than it is to be better. So if you're working on a product or a service right now, and you're trying to perfect that product or service before you bring it to market, I would challenge you and ask the question, would it make more sense for you to just get it to market and be first in before someone else or another company introduces it? And no matter how great your product is at that point, you're coming from behind. I'm just a big fan of competing in the spaces where competition doesn't exist. Not because I'm afraid of competition, but because it makes a hell of a lot more sense to be first in and carve out your own category, carve out your own niche before the competition exists. So the focusing question for you today, in your business right now, were you in fact, I should say, first into the category or first into the industry? I'm assuming the answer is no. And if that's the case, how could you create even a new category, which, by the way, is a different law within the 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing? There's law of category. How could you create a new category and be first in? If you're in the real estate business, like so many of our listeners, there's traditional real estate, yes, but is there something that you can carve out and make your own and be at least the first in within your respective community or city? See, I mean, it would be nice to be national, but you don't even have to be national depending on how localized your business happens to be. So the focusing question, are you first in presently? Assuming you're not, what could you create to be the leader, to be the first in that category? Something really to give some deep thought. I've seen businesses completely changed and revolutionized just by establishing or defining a new category that didn't exist just a short time ago. That's all we have for you today, the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.